Good evening, ladies and gents, and welcome to another instalment of the CarpFix Live. Obviously, the main purpose of this is to do an interactive Q&A with you, the member. So get your questions in, all things carp fishing related, anything to do with our recent content or what you'd like to see and what not, anything seasonal that you might want to ask us both. But while you get those questions in, I suppose it's probably a good idea to just have a little recap on what we've been up to. And I think maybe Scott should start us off by telling us about the capture his
Hawaii
first
5-0.
His first ever UK 50-pounder.
Well, the way it happened was I was going to go to Grenville early on the Monday morning as normal, and both of my little ones, for some reason, whenever I'm going away, they sleep really, really bad. I'm pretty sure it's every time. And then it was so bad, it's never normally this bad, it was so bad, I decided that I'm not going to get up at 4 a.m, I'm going to sleep, because I had the luxury of you going there. And I thought, Darrell's going there, he's going to go in a swim before me anyway, then he's going to tell me where I need to fish, so there's no rushing me getting there. So that's basically what happened.
Right.
So you said 32's looking good, and when you say 32 is looking good, I go in 32. Standard Grenville procedure is obviously locate the fish, put a good amount of bait out there. Obviously, you can catch fish different ways there, but this is like
At this time of year.
Yeah. Put a good amount of bait out, which is what I did. And then I went actually the way that my kind of hook bait approach or the rig approach was based on the previous week. So I went the previous week and caught I can't remember what I caught. What was it? I think it was a 38 or something. I caught a nice mirror or something. It was a nice mirror. But I caught that on a stiff hinge rig, which is because Steve Hill, who was fishing next to me, he caught that on a stiff hinge rig as well.
He had 49.
Yeah, he was fishing little yellow pop-ups.
Yeah.
He had like 3 fish. He had a decent session. And I thought, I'm just going to fish exactly the same. It was clear ground out there. I could have fished a multi-combi rig.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, like we'll go on to your comment, you're saying a bit like to target those bigger fish, a big pop-up in the face.
Well, I think when you're fishing over that much bait, like at Grenville, sort of, to give you a bit more detail on the sort of general style of this time of year fishing there, it's 25 to 30 foot deep out there. And because it's that sort of depth, it's pretty barren. You just the light doesn't penetrate to the bottom in that depth of water, and you don't tend to get that much weed out there. So it's almost fairly desert-like out there. You're putting out large quantities of boilies, 10, 20 kilos, fishing for big packs of carp. Now, if they're coming in and they're eating 10, 20 kilos of boilies, then I don't think they're going to worry about one being an inch or two off the bottom, when they get into that sort of frenzy. And like you say, I think when they do get a pop-up, I use this saying quite a lot, a pop-up's greatest benefit is also its biggest downfall, and its biggest benefit is that it's easily spotted. And because it's easily spotted, it will be regularly ignored. But I quite often think that not only big fish, but greedy fish in general, when they're getting a bit overconfident, they decide they're going to take it from quite a distance away. They've made eye contact with it, and by the time they've got to it at the pace they're moving towards it, they're committed. It's not like they're just like moving from one like mouthful of hemp to the next.
They're going straight.
They're going towards it. They're moving in at pace, and when they commit like that, they usually get hung up on the rig, as they should do. But I don't think it overly matters whether you're fishing a pop-up or a wafter, or I think they're both going to work. For sure.
But yeah, put that good amount of bait out, and I think obviously the key is there to ensure the bait, because it's getting put out by a boat, is making sure your rig is on top of that bait. Because if it's not, you're not fishing. You are, but you're not fishing
efficiently.
Yeah, no,
not efficiently. Like one of the key things, like people always wonder how like the most consistent anglers catch more than the rest. How do they do it consistently? And they find the fish, they find the spot, where the fish are willing to feed, and they get their rig and bait accurately onto that. And there's not a lot really outside of those things. Obviously, you've got your bait choice, the amount that you put in, how efficient is your rig, and all of that. But the real crux of things that really make the difference consistently is location. Are you on the fish? Are you on the best part of the lake bed where the fish want to eat? And if you can put your rig and your bait accurately there, and do that well consistently, not once, like do it in the night after a recast, do it after a fish within a, like 1 or 2 casts, so you're not spooking them. These are the real things that sort of separate. They sound so simple, but like there's very little difference. It's like fine lines, very fine lines between getting it exactly right and getting it just wrong. And I think for the unexperienced, it's quite an easy thing to let certain things slide. Oh, that cast will do, and it probably barreled into the water, not hit the clip properly, or they've miscounted a wrap because they've not taken their time over it, or they're holding the rod at a different angle when they're feeling the lead down. Doing the basics, the real simple things extremely efficiently will catch you fish from absolutely everywhere.
Obviously at Grenville you have a little bit of time, and I actually did a test with wrapping up whilst I was there, and I wrapped up multiple times. Normally I'm a little bit hearsay with the wrapping. I kind of just do it, not very organised in a nice organised fashion.
As you mean up, high, low, high,
so I
low.
did an extreme test, and I went from almost like
diagonals.
Yeah, and it adds on loads.
Yeah.
So for anyone out there, if you do that, because I was doing not,
and your pole's being on an angle.
Yeah,
like I see lots of people lay their arms out because they're trying to avoid the line pinging off the top.
Yeah.
But what you're doing, if you're always at the bottom of that, that's fine. But if you're going at different heights up and down that outwardly splay, you're getting different lengths of line.
Because I did it just as a test, really, because I thought, how much does that actually add on? But if you go up like a few wraps, like that much every time, it's adding on half a wrap. But
over the course of 30 odd wraps?
Yeah, so if I was fishing 30 wraps, for example, and I went up like too high a few times, it was adding literally half a wrap. I re-wrapped, it was like over half a wrap. I was like,
yeah, no, definitely, for sure.
So and that is one of the key things. Now I've obviously worked out that I need to make sure that when I'm wrapping up, to get on that spot, I'm wrapping up properly. Because if I add on a bit, you'd think it wouldn't add on a much, but it's like,
I would say that the two things you can really do to be really accurately is do what you say, is in make sure your wraps around your sticks are at the same height every time, or as close to the same height, so you're not up and down. So you're getting the exact same amount of line. And the second thing you can do is hold the rod in the same position every time when you feel the lead down.
Yeah.
And lots of people will be cast, bring the rod back here, hit the clip, and then holding it there. And then the next time it's over there, and the next time it's over there. You should whatever it is, whether you want to hold it at 11, whether you're going to hold it pointing at it. I think at Grenville, I've started to point at it because you can't get that wrong.
No.
You cast, you hit the clip, you cushion it down,
like
and then point straight at the spot. It can only hit the bottom on that taut line.
That's the same distance every time.
If you're pointing straight at it.
Yeah.
So I've started doing that on there because it's so deep. But yeah, those little things they make.
Yeah. Well,
make all the difference.
It's one of those things. I never really thought about it, and I thought that must add on. Like I was looking at it, I was like, this is messy. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But then I was like, did a calculation. I was like, this is half a wrap out. I've done it when I've done it worse than that. So I did like other tests where I went proper up and down, and it was like.
To be fair, when you're fishing somewhere like Grenville where it's not too weedy, you're going to be just off the bait, which isn't the end of the world.
No.
But if you were fishing on a tiny clear spot in the weed, it's the difference between being on it and not on it.
It just shocked me when I did it the first time, when I re-wrapped it and it was half a wrap more. I was like,
wow.
Yeah, it's quite a long way. Like if you're fishing, like you say, on a tight spot.
Do you double count as in? Do you count on and off? Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, like I've been wrong on that as well a few times.
Yeah,
like people walking past and you just miss one or something.
Or if you're filming with John Nebo and he starts breaking out into some conversation about the locals down in the Cornish lands.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, I caught so put the bait out, put the rig out, and then that was about lunchtime or just before lunch. I think it was before lunchtime on the Monday, and then wasn't until a Tuesday morning. Didn't recast, do anything, left the rod out. Tuesday morning, I think it was about 7:30, and just me right hand rod. It was just the little line clip came off and just went away.
Little soda England bobbins you got.
Yeah. They love it. I love them. Yeah, and then nice sunrise and caught a 52-pounder.
He brought it up to me on the old mat, and I was like, "Is that a 40?" I was like, "Oh, it might be a 40." I was thinking, looked like a scraper 40. Shows what I know. It was 52 pounds. It was massive. It was
long, but I think
long,
it was very
thick.
top heavy. Yeah. But it was,
big old fish.
Like, obviously you were there at the same time, absolutely hauling, and you would have easily caught more if you didn't have someone filming you. But to catch 150 that's all you go for me.
Well, that's what you're fishing.
Yeah,
you go to a lake like Grenville because there's numbers of big fish in there, and there's.
I skipped the 40s.
It doesn't matter if someone else has caught X, Y, or Z on the other side of the lake the day before.
Well, they did a 60-pounder.
Yeah, it doesn't matter because there's so many other big ones in there.
Yeah.
So it doesn't. You're never going to turn up there, and it's not about one fish, is it, Grenville? It's not about that at all.
No, I mean, every fish you catch is lovely. But yeah, actually, on that note, Paul at Grenville, if you didn't see, I think I put a story or reel out on Instagram. If you didn't see, we're giving a CarpFix member the chance to come on a guest ticket with me for 48 hours. That we're going to do that up until the end of November. So as long as you're a member at the end of November, we'll do the draw 1st of December. And we'll work out a date to go, probably like spring next year or something. But that'll be a session to come with me, and then we're going to do another one from the start of December to the end of December. So you've got to be a member at the end of December, and that'll be a session
with me.
I'll be there filming, or Ash will, and then it'll be a session with Darrell on Grenville as well. Ooh. So you got 2 chances. Actually, the second one is only for annual members. That's what we did.
Right.
Was that right? Is that the way around we did it? Yeah. Everyone for.
So at the end, basically, to simplify it, at the end of November, we're going to pick a winner to go fishing with Scott at Grenville, and that'll be picked from all of the members.
Yeah.
And then at the end of December, we're going to pick a winner from the annual subscribers to come fishing with me.
Yeah.
Should we have some questions? We've been rabbiting on for quite some time.
Yeah, good reason though.
Yeah, you caught 50.
We haven't even talked about your fish.
I'm sure someone's going to ask in a minute.
Yeah.
I'm sure someone's going to ask.
Right, let's have a look. We've got live chat. If you haven't asked a question yet, feel free to put one on, and we'll do our best to get through them. Lewis Pitts, self-take question. Hi mate, what do you use for self-takes at night on your Canon?
I don't often do self-takes, but I've got, I think, what are they called, the flashes, they're called speed lights, aren't they?
Yeah, I think so.
So I've got a speed light, I put it on the ETTL setting at 45 degrees. I shoot at f4 400 ISO, 2/250th of a second on the shutter speed. And I make sure that when you set the flash to the same mil as the lens you're using. So if you're using a 50mm lens, make sure that it's set at the right distance. And then I do like it if you can use head torches, or you can get those little lamps, 2 little lights going in at 45 degrees behind the fish. So the lights aren't actually on the fish or on me, they're on the background behind me, which just helps to sort of light up the background rather than end up with that big area of blackness behind you. But I don't do too many night shots, and certainly not self-takes anyway, but that's how I do when I have to.
Cool. We've got a question from Chris, who's asked a question about the Kaizens. My question, I think, is both. So my question for the live CarpFix for Darrell, being a quarter angler, can I assume Darrell would be given a set of Kaizen rods of choice? Again, assuming these would be free to him, ? I often see a lot of his content he's using the greens over the platinums. I would understand using the greens over the platinums if money was an issue, but if cost for Darrell isn't part of the equation, why? LOL. I often wonder why Darrell uses the greens in what seems to be more often over the platinums when greens are advertised as a less quality rod.
Well, I've got 12-foot 3.5 pound greens, and I've got 13-foot 3.5 pound platinums. So when I'm fishing small lakes where I don't need to cast very far, I use the greens. They're not quite as crisp as the platinums, and like you say, I don't have to pay for them. So it's a case of, yeah, I could have a set of the platinums, but I don't need them. And yeah, for the shorter range stuff, the greens, yeah, I like them as a rod. If it was my money, for example, if I had bought them, the difference in performance from £150 to £450, for me, it's not really there. Do you know what I mean? The difference, you could just go up in a test curve to get that extra range. Yeah, the platinums are lovely. And I love using my 13-footers when I'm really smacking them out there. But for general day-to-day stuff, the greens are they're nice. And it's nice sometimes to be able to use cheaper kit and show that you don't need the most expensive stuff to catch fish. Because a lot of people just think, it's all right if you get them for free, but if you're you can still catch fish on the cheaper ones. They're not actually gonna put more fish on the bank on smaller waters. Perhaps if you're fishing really far out and every single wrap matters, then that extra money is gonna help you do that. But a lot of it's just, it's more people like to have the best stuff because they're just into it. Whereas if it does the job, it does the job. That's sort of how I feel about it.
Gavin Baldwin says, congratulations on the Lord of the Manor capture, Darrell.
The Lord of the Manor.
Sure
it's always coming.
Liam Banks, evening legends. Darrell, when you're fishing maggots and caster, what are your thoughts about the bait drifting with the undertow, even if you mix them with a heavy mix like crumb and liquids? Also, would love to see you do a session for CarpFix in the summer on Baden Hall, the quarry, where we've been before.
Yeah. No, it's hard to get on there now because there's so many big fish in there.
I thought
it's insane, mate. There's multiple 50s in there now.
Really?
And I think there's over 40 40s. Which
the day ticket.
Yeah, but it was only 5 minutes ago that I remember I was text Spooner saying, "What's happened to Baden?" No, I'm not. You're thinking Baden Hall with the huts, aren't you?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I'm getting confused here.
Oh, what's he on about?
So
he's on about Baden Hall, yeah.
He's on about Baden Hall?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
I thought we were talking about the one we went down the zig fishing at in Chelmsford. Res.
Oh.
You know the one I mean, don't you?
Yeah.
We've been there a few times in the winter. Total Tackles Lake.
Burners.
I
can't even think of it.
So sorry. There's not Baden Hall has not got loads and loads of big.
I thought they Baden Hall with the huts round it. I thought they didn't put an auto fence up or something, and an auto got in there.
So what is he saying about that? He'd like to see us go there.
Yeah,
Baden Hall.
I mean,
it's unlikely we're going to go there.
It's quite far as well.
It's a real long way from home, and we'd be driving past so much to get there. I enjoyed it when we went there and filmed for Corda, but it's unlikely we're going to go there again, to be fair.
But his question was about when you're fishing maggots and caster, what are your thoughts about the bait drifting with the undertow?
Okay. Yeah, it's quite a good.
It's
quite a good question there.
Yeah.
If you say for example you got quite a wet mix, and then you put your maggots in that wet mix and you leave them in that wet mix, that is not good, because if maggots get wet, they think they're drowning, and when they think they're drowning, they take on air, and when they take on air, they'll either float or sink really slowly. So if you're going to add maggots to a wet mix, just do it at the last point before you put them out, and obviously the wet mix might hold on to them and drag them down to the bottom, but it's really important that you don't add them to that. Say you're using boilie crumb and you've made it wet because you want the boilie crumb to sink quickly. You can't pre-add the maggots to that a long time in advance, because they will take on the air because they think they've got the possibility of drowning. So if you could use a bait dropper at short range, and you could make up quite. You can make up a mix so that, like, the mix goes down in lumps that will take the maggots down with it as well. But they are going to drift. If you're fishing somewhere like Berners, for example, Berners Hall, where we fish quite a lot, it's up on a hill, you get a lot of undertow, and maggots, and particularly casters, they will drift off in that tow. With casters, I quite often soak mine just before I put them out. So, like, when we went to, do you remember we went to Farlow's that time?
Yes.
Well,
that's the clip that Ash used today.
Yeah. I put the casters in water so they're overfilled and sunk, and they do sink a little bit quicker like that as well. So that's all worth bearing in mind.
Paul Linwood, evening both. Congratulations on the fully, Darrell. Amazing fish. Out of interest, can you give an idea of the investment into the capture?
Yeah. Okay. So last year I booked the lake for 3 weeks, and I got a bit of a deal because I basically put the owner of the lake in touch with Embryo because they needed a knot fence. Well, I didn't fund the knot fence. I just put 2 people together, and by putting 2 people together, I got a bit of a deal. But I don't want to say exactly how much I paid, but it was a few £1,000s for 3 weeks. And obviously, I had the bait that I bought, and that particular year, the first year of fish there, you were allowed to use worms. And over the course of 3 weeks, I used 25 kilos of worms. I think it was. It might be 28 kilos. I had two lots of 14. I think it was. And they're like £20 a kilo. So, yeah, a few £1,000s last year I spent, and I didn't catch it. The fish had been caught just before I arrived twice. I sat there for 3 weeks, caught really well, but didn't catch it. And then this year I paid full price, the same as everybody else, which was, I think it was £1,600 for 5 or 6 nights. I can't remember. I think it was 6 nights. £1,600 for 6 nights, and I booked 2 weeks with a gap in between. I think there was 5 nights in between. So I fished the new moon, and I caught in 5 or 6 nights. I think I caught 3 and lost 1. I think it was, or 2 and lost 1. I can't even remember. 2 and lost 1 on that first week. And then I came back, and I can't remember how many I had on last week because it blew my head up when I caught the big one. But I caught quite a few in the second week. But yeah, to answer the question of how much I spent, a few thousand last year and just over 3,000 this year, which I understand for most of you watching that's a lot of money. And it's a lot of money to me. But at the same time, I can offset that against my personal tax, and I'm doing it for work, and I'm getting paid to be there by quarter as well. So, yeah, it cost me a lot, but
was it worth it?
Yeah, like this is where I'm going to go with it. Like, as in, like, I've been fishing for 30 years, and I've caught some really big ones in the UK before. I fished lots of commercials in France. I fished in Belgium on the canals. I fished Orient. I fished a whole mass different types and styles of venues all over Europe, and I never fished anywhere with a £60 fully scaled. And furthermore, I never fished for a carp that I wanted to catch that much without having other people trying to catch it at the same time. So to pay for that level of most people that go to the manor go with 3 to 6 people, and they divvy the lake up between them, and obviously that makes it a bit cheaper. But I wanted to catch it. I didn't want to photo it for somebody else. So although it was a lot of money, like I think it was like 300, it works out £300 a night. Though it was a lot of money, I saw it as a bit of a once in a lifetime opportunity to fish for a carp like that. And furthermore, it's a reasonably catchable. Like, it's realistic to think you're going to catch it. It's not like going to target the Burfield Common. It comes out every 3 years or whatnot, and you've got 50 guys all trying for it. And if one guy catches it, you're going to be waiting another 3 years before it pops up again. This is the fish that's coming out 3, 4, 5 times a year. So when I arrived and it hadn't been caught for 6, 7 weeks, you know, that when you hear it hasn't been out for 6-7 weeks and it's in a 4-acre lake and you're the only one fishing for it, every bite you get is just like the intensity. And when you start catching a few, you're thinking, next bite could be it, next bite could be it. And that's, big investment, but worth every penny.
Did you think, obviously it's 62...
63.
63, yeah. Did you think it, when you landed it and you looked at it, did you think it was going to go 60, or were you a little bit...
Be honest, could barely see it. It was, I landed it from the boat, it got into a big load of weed and couldn't move it from the bank, went out in the boat above it, and luckily I had brand new line on for that week. I'd literally put brand new line on all my reels, and I'd gone up to 15 pounds rather than 12 in fluorocarbon, and I'm pulling it and it's not coming up, it's stuck solid, and I'm thinking I'm pulling harder than I want to pull, and then while I'm having these thoughts that it's stuck, I don't know what it is, my other rod on the bank went, and then one of the bailiffs has beefed into my rod, and I'm thinking he could be playing the biggest fish in the lake, and I could be out here trying to get a 20-pounder off the bottom. So what, like, you don't want to rip out the one that you got, but you're fearful that he's reeling in like a fish on your rod. Anyway, this one that I'm pulling on from the boat suddenly started coming, and when the weed came to the surface, it was as big as that table, probably more. And the only part of the fish that I could see was the wrist of its tail. And on the wrist of its tail, it's got a bit of a bald spot, a livery spot, and I could see it was that. So at that point, I've got a bit of weed as big as that table that's not going to fit in a landing net. And I'm having to break that down to get it into the net, you know, which was, at any second, it could have just gone mental and ripped the hook out. But to be fair, I couldn't even see it. It was all covered in weed. I netted it with the weed, and I brought it back to the bank, and
then you had a look at it.
If it was 58, if it was 63, I had no idea until it went on scales. I weren't even thinking that.
Cool. So hopefully that gives you an idea of...
It was fucking good. It was fucking good. And it come out that... We photoed it right... When you say like last light, I mean last light. It was pitch black 5 minutes after we put it back. I don't know how you can see the picture. I think I took an ISO 8000 or something. My camera doesn't even go to that. And it was because it'd been in the bag a couple of hours. It was in the photos it looks black, but it was more like dark purple in real life. It was like dark purpley blue, but insane. Insane.
Very good, very good.
Insane.
Let's have a look, see what we've got. Tom Coffee. Hi, mate. What's the best braid for spomming?
Obviously, I don't chop and change. I use the Corda one, which is the Corda spod braid, and I use that with like generally a 30-pound armour cord leader. You can use the 50-pound as well. Basically, the real thing for spomming and your braids, you definitely want a floating braid. You know, you don't want a sinking braid because sinking ones are coarse, heavy, don't cast that well. Obviously, floating ones, they cast nicer. A lot of people tell me that they get wind knots and stuff with braid. I never suffer any of that, and the real key is just winding it on tight. Wind it on tight. Don't overfill your reel, and you'll have no bother. Wind it on tight. Don't overfill your reel, and you'll have no trouble.
Beautiful. Brett Coombs. Yes, lads. Watching live from the bank. No fish yet, but I'm eating beef jerky and drinking Guinness. Send me some luck, please, Pecky lad.
Go on there, babe. Get a bit of that beef jerky on the end. Love it out there. That'll sort them out.
Hope you catch one. Robert Pizzi. Evening. Kevin McManus, who came on the one of the socials, the trios. Evening, Darrell and Scott. Hope you and your business is good. Hope your tickets are going well, mate. He does parking tickets. He dishes them out. That's what he does. Legend. Right. I mean, yeah. A random and potentially dumbass question. Nothing's dumb here, but it's been bugging me, as Darrell always says, rod lengths rather than wraps. When you guys say how many rod lengths you are fishing in your sessions, given you are generally using 13-foot rods, are we talking 13-foot rod lengths or the standard 12-foot stick?
When I say rod lengths, I mean 12-foot wraps. I always do 12-foot wraps And I always use my marker or my spod rod as I don't use a rope. I literally put my marker rod down and put the sticks in at either end of my 12-foot rod.
See, I've only got a 13. Well, I haven't got a 12-foot. I use my at Grenville.
It doesn't matter though.
No,
it doesn't matter what they are as long as you know what they are.
Yeah,
as long as you know what they are. It's
Let's have a look. See what we've got. Tim Bailey, evening all. Gaz the Jailer.
I've heard that name before. Yeah.
Evening, lads. There's so many different hook baits on the market. It's almost impossible to carry them all. Do you have a top 5 you've always got in your arsenal for both?
I know what you mean. It's so easy to accumulate an absolute rucksack full of hook baits, and you always use the same ones. At the moment, I've been doing really well on the 15mm pink, like washed out pink they are, Isofish wafters. Whether it's the flavour, whether it's the colour, probably more to do with the colour, but I've been fishing them over cell, been fishing them over Isofish, caught loads of fish on them. A little underrated one that no one tends to use very much is the salty squid. The 12s and the 15s and the 20s, actually, the 18, sorry. I've done really well. Whenever I've used them, and I've not used them that much, whenever I've tried them, I've always caught. They smell really subtle, but they're quite a nice shade of pink, particularly once they've been in the water like 5 minutes. They look quite leery in the pot, but when they go in the water, they go a nice colour, and they definitely work on a lot of places. You won't go far wrong with a pineapple pop-up. The pineapple juice ones from Mainline I've done well on. I think you should always have a tub of pineapple pop-ups. Dovey swears by them, but they are really, really good. I do like a match to hatch sort of cell or an off-white 18mm wafter. I like that sort of hook bait for bottom fishing. I think pineapple pop-up, an 18mm white washed out wafter, either cell or banoffee one. Those pink salty squids wafters and those ISO fish wafters, they're my sort of go-tos at the minute.
There you go. Lennart. Good evening, lads. Regarding baits and seasons, what kind of baits do you prefer over the course of the year? Boilies, tiger nuts, naturals, and alternative baits. For example, I had a feeling the tigers don't work in autumn as good as boilies. Thanks.
I think it's really, really venue dependent. I've never found tigers to be less effective in the autumn. I think they like eating them year round. I do think that when you're fishing over less bait in really cold conditions, a lot of times a brighter boilie will score better than a tiger just because it's discovered, it's spotted easier. But that said, if you're fishing somewhere where the fish are hard pressured, it's a small lake, it's quite intimate. I've scored really well on single tigers even in the depths of winter. Northey Park being one venue in particular, I was fishing there quite hard 2 winters in a row, not doing very well at all, and I was chopping and changing between pop-up colour, but I was pretty much fishing pop-ups exclusively until someone set up next to me and caught 3 in an afternoon on tigers, and I quickly learnt my lesson. And when I adopted that approach myself, I've done really, really well. Single tiger nuts on in really, really shallow water in the winter scored really well for me. So I think I can't give you an answer and say tigers are better than boilies, boilies are better than tigers. They've all got their time and a place, and at different times on different venues, you just have to work out what's working there. And once you zone in on that, obviously you can use it more frequently.
Cool. Robert Pizzy, evening both. When are we getting a new Peckers Teckers? Long overdue.
What Peckers Teckers do they want? I've been saying we're going to do the hook sharpening one. We can do that new hook sharpening technique, because I've not been using the captors for a while, and I've not been not captors, the Kamakuras. I've not been using Kamakuras, and I've not been front shaving my hooks for a number of years now. I've been almost exclusively just scratching the surface with the inner side of the point, which I've never shown before. It only take a few minutes to do, but I feel it's a superior way of sharpening the hook.
Maybe in December, when we're both about to clock off for Christmas, or try and clock off, we can have a day in here
of doing some techers.
We just do some stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've been concentrating on the films because they take a long time to go and film and then edit. We don't have the manpower to kind of spread the load into the techers, but hopefully in December we'll try and
bring a couple of them in.
Do some. It'd be nice to, because obviously you would like to see them. So we will try and do some in December. Get them in time for the new year so you can get them, get your techers ready for next year. Ryan, evening both, fishing at over 30 wraps in 9 to 11 foot of water. Would you clip your fishing rod to the same wraps as your spom?
Yes. Exactly the same. Yeah, because when you're fishing at shorter range than that, the lead's going to swing back towards you a little bit. So you'd want to put your spom a little bit shorter. But when you're fishing at 30 wraps, you've got this big belly of line. And I think that the spom, I think the lead almost hits the bottom vertically. I don't think it's swinging back at all because you've got a bow and arc in your line. So I would feel the lead down, pointing out there. So I wouldn't be bringing the rod to the side. I'd be feeling the lead down, pointing at it, and I'd be doing the same with the spom and fishing exactly the same.
Beautiful. Clay is asked, what's your best advice for Grenville?
Best advice for Grenville? Obviously, I haven't fished it loads, and most of my experience of fishing it is in the autumn. I fished there a little bit in the spring, like May, and I fished there a little bit in October, November, end of November sort of time. So that's where my experience, and September. So most of the fishing I've done there has been in the autumn, and I think Grenville is best suited in the autumn. It's got a large area of deep water in the middle. Fish are always out there. Fish tend to be closer to the back of the wind side than the end of the wind. I think it's to do with the undertow. But that has two benefits. If the fish come closer on the back of the wind, they're coming closer to the bank, but you can also cast further. So, my top tips of Grenville for the autumn would be look for the fish on the back of the wind and exploit that by casting further than you normally could. And really, you want to be putting 10 kilos of bait out minimum, in my opinion. I don't say that willy-nilly, saying like you need to go put 10 kilos in every lake that you go and fish. But Grenville's is a unique place, as in it's got over 2,000 carp in it. They are massive, and although 10 kilos is a lot of bait, it's not a lot of bait there. If you're paying the money to fish somewhere as prolific and full of big fish as Grenville, then the last thing you want to be doing is scrimping and scraping over a bit of bait. And I would, if you are worried about the price of the bait, I'd buy it from Paul. Obviously I think it's £6 a kilo from him for 60 quid a bucket. Fish get fed it all the time, but fish at long range on the back of the wind, and not just anywhere. Look for the fish. Turn up in the morning, get on the gate, walk round to the back of the wind, see where the fish are jumping, cast on that. So if you see a few fish jumping in a line in the direction of a certain tree, go out in that direction towards that tree as far as you can, like as far as you can comfortably, and you can re-hit your clip, whether that's 30 to 35 wraps. It's going to need to be out there, that sort of range. Put your 10 kilo bait out fairly tight, pull from the boat, fish all three of them at the same range. Pink hook baits, yellow hook baits probably won't matter. And I don't think it's much more complicated than that, because it's all clear out there. There's no weed. I think it's a different kettle of fish in the spring, personally. I think because it's a deep lake, the fish will be off the bottom over the deep water for long periods of time. And I think the edges in the near end as you come in are certainly worth a look at that time. But I think it's a much more straightforward lake in the autumn. For me, it's very, very plain to see what you've got to do. Back of the wind, fish at range, over loads of bait, where you see them jumping. There'll be loads of fish out there. That couldn't be more simple than that. But in the spring, I think they're up off the bottom. There's not many shallow bits, so it becomes a little bit more complicated. So, my advice would be to concentrate your efforts around late summer, autumn, up to Christmas. I think that's the best time.
Beautiful. Simon Stanton had an amazing summer and autumn on my syndicate using seeds. Loads of people saying to stop using it, but I'm still getting amongst them. When would you stop?
Stop catching. So he's saying he's catching loads of fish on seeds, and people are saying he should stop.
Yeah.
Why? Like, some of the stuff that people say is just absolutely bizarre. I've heard it. I remember I talked about using maggots somewhere in September, and I remember they commented in the feed, it was on YouTube, using maggots before October is just desperate. I'm like,
you're banned.
No, you're just desperate. I'm like, why is it desperate? Like, just use whatever bait's catching, man. Just like, people like, oh, zigs don't catch, floaters don't catch. What a load of garbage. If it's working and you're catching and you're having fun, and people say that, just raise one eyebrow at them and don't say anything.
Simon, keep using your seeds.
Yeah, keep using your seeds.
Yeah.
Keep holding.
Keep using them. Richard Patton. Hi, chaps. When fishing bright singles, do you prefer smaller pop-up like 12mm or bigger 15mm? Do you think it makes a difference?
It probably doesn't. It probably does. But I always think, like, imagine you're feeding like 15 millers out there, right? So 15 miller looks a certain size on the bottom. Sorry, I just bumped the mic. So 15 miller looks at. If you're using like a 12, 13 miller that's off the bottom, maybe it looks roughly the same size as a 15 miller because it's got that extra height on it. And I also think the smaller it is, the less threatening it can seem. You know, like if you had like a 24mm bright yellow pop-up or a bright pink pop-up out there, I imagine it just look absolutely disgusting. But a little 12 miller is like a little bit, I don't know. I've caught plenty of carp and lots of small carp on 18mm pop-ups when I was a kid. But as a general rule, I'm using 12 to 15mm pop-ups, and I can't remember the last time I used a bigger pop-up than that, other than on snowman rigs in France.
Yeah. Carl Wallace. Evening, boys. My mate Dan is hosting a charity match at the end of September 2025 at Suffolk Water Park. Would you, Scott, be able to pop down for a meet and greet? Like to meet you as well myself. I mean, September for you is very busy.
You're just round the corner. You'll do that,
but
won't you, Scott?
I can always come down.
Yeah, you'll do it.
I'll happily come down, but you'll probably be at the Orient.
I won't be. I'm going to be banned. I'll be busy filming something, I guess.
Yeah, you'll be somewhere. Mate, yeah, you probably will.
If you've got a barbecue on, Scott will be there.
Send the Send the dates to info@carpfix.tv, and yeah, if we haven't got any filming booked in already, it's not far. I can pop down and say hi, but I know you want to see Darrell. If there's space to fish, I'll fish. Don't mind doing that.
We should do a film there at some point.
Yeah, it's really cool. Michael, not going to pronounce your surname, Michael. Hello, Darrell. Which boilie do you need in autumn and winter?
I always use Cell, personally. I've literally just come back from a 4-night session at Grenville's, and I was using Cell and Isofish at the same time. Caught loads of fish, but I feel more comfortable using Cell from sort of November on. I know all of the baits are what they would say is winterized. They're all year round baits, but I've done particularly well on Cell in the cold weather over the years. And it's really, when you're fishing in the winter and things are getting tough, the last thing you want to be questioning whether it works or how good it is your bait. And you're never going to be doing that with Cell. It works everywhere. I can't think of anywhere I've ever been or heard of anywhere where the fish don't like Cell. You know, it works. So yeah, that's my go-to in the colder months. I love the 10 millers. Literally love fishing 10 millers and crumb as a combo. And I think the crumb soaked in Smart Liquid, a few 10 millers, you can't go wrong.
Cool. Gavin has asked, hi guys, how long would you use fish meals into the colder months?
Well, it's off the back of the same.
Yeah.
Thing is, it's very hard for me to say definitively. You know, years ago I used to use the Nash CarpFix squid bait, really good bait that I caught a lot of big fish on, and this was before I was a more well-rounded angler. I was just a boilie angler back then, and I only fished boilies. And the only thing I did differently at that time of year is I just fished less bait. And I caught, even from the hardest lakes, on single bottom bait, 20mm bottom baits. I remember catching one out of Yateley car park in February on a single 20mm CarpFix squid, and that's like a fishy meal sort of style bait. So I do think that good fish meals, like ones that aren't too oily, too fatty, will work all year round, but just not in the quantities. Whereas when I fish with cell in the colder months, I'm quite happy to put it a bit in because it's not oily. It's not really fatty in the same way as a fatty fish meal. So yeah, I think you can use fish meals all year round, but I just don't think you want to be using them in the quantities compared to sort of a more porous, less oily bait. That's what I think.
Cool. Good evening, guys. Would you use the multi-combi rig on the bottom of falling leaves, or would you rather opt for a pop-up presentation? I use the rig with Snowman 20mm, 16mm with great success. That's Benjamin van den Noort.
That's a Dutchie, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a Dutchie for sure. I like to fish the combi multi-rig when I know the bottom's clear. The trouble is, depending on if you're fishing a small lake at this time of year that's surrounded by trees, even the best clear spots that you know inside out can suddenly have a leaf or two appear on them, and that could mess up your presentation. So I do quite often find myself fishing pop-ups on smaller lakes at this time of year because of the leaves and whatnot. But if I was fishing somewhere like Grenville, which is big, open and windswept, I don't think the potential for a random leaf being on the spot is as likely. And in that case, I'm more likely to stay with a combi multi-rig with a wafter or a snowman presentation. So, yeah, I think it depends as well whether you think the fish in your lake are so hard pressured that they're avoiding pop-ups all the time. You know, if you're fishing somewhere that's everyone's using Ronnie rigs, everyone's using chod rigs, stiff hinge rigs, and they have been for the last 2 decades. You know, on the real pressured venues, bright pop-ups just are getting avoided, particularly later in the year. So yeah, pop-ups are for presentation over stuff, and if you think that you can get presentation without pop-up, probably best not to use one a lot of the time.
Cool. Gavin Baldwin, he said, that's a great prize. He's referring to the old Grenville.
What, with me or Scott?
Well, definitely with you. I don't know about me. But yeah, if you want a chance to fish Grenville, you've got 2 chances. One is if you're just a regular member, an active member on the end of this month, then you'll be in the draw to fish with me. And if you're an annual member, which you can upgrade to an annual membership, you'll have 2 chances. And the second one is to fish with Darrell at the end of December. You've got to be a member on the 31st of December for that one. So you've got 2 shots to win a session at Grenville.
Nice.
Thank you, Paul. And Paul is actually watching at the moment.
Is he?
Yeah, he's a CarpFix member.
Is he?
He says, "Hi Scott, well done on your 52." He's not said anything about the 20 fish that you caught. It's all about me.
Yeah, all about me. You caught 1. It was £52. I had 20.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything that big.
Right. David Selly, will there ever be a big carp story on the Days Only Estate Lake?
Days? Have I not done that?
What is that lake?
Isn't it? I don't want to say the name of it. Well, actually, I can say the name of it because all the fish are dying. It doesn't matter. There's a lake called Little Eastern Manor. It's near Stansted. It's
I know.
It's about, I'd say it's an acre and a half, maybe 2 acres.
Is it like long with reeds?
No, it's like quite square with an island, a mature island on it, and a set of steps with a fountain and that in it. Basically, it's in the grounds of a big manor house where they have weddings and stuff. So it's like basically in the garden of this massive mansion. Right. And it was originally a swimming pool in the olden days. Like that's what it was.
An old,
yeah. So it's got these like little wooden huts with like mirrors and that in it, and they've got all the inside these wooden huts, all the weights of the fish have been carved in there by people that have fished there over the years. But it was one of the trickiest lakes that I fished in terms of it was days only, so that made it quite difficult. And because it was days only, everyone thought the tactic would be because you could pre-book your swim. You booked your swim, and people thought the edge is to go down there the night before and fill it in with bait. But the trouble is, if everybody goes down there and fills it in with bait, they just eat it at night, and then no one catches anything. And because it was only sort of 2.5, 3 foot deep, you could see them, like 50, 60 carp, and they just swim, like you'd sit there all day and swim over your rigs, and then you just leave, and you know that they're eating all the bait when you go. But I fished 5 consecutive winters on there, so I could do a pretty good big carp story. I've got some funny stories. Some funny stories about it.
Yeah, I don't think we have. It doesn't ring a bell.
No, I haven't. To be fair, I must have just forgot that one. But that could be quite a good one.
Yeah, December one.
Yeah, could probably do that.
If you can remember all the...
I'd only have to read the chapter, put some bullet points down. Could tell it.
That's how easy it is to do a big carp story.
It is for me. I was there.
Yeah, well, yeah. So the answer to that is yes, and hopefully we'll do it for December, maybe. Lewis Pitts, legend, thank you. Lee Honey said, evening lads, sorry, been missing for a while, been in hospital, I had a heart attack, now home. Well,
hope you're well.
Yeah.
Hope you're on the mend.
And he says wants to get out fishing, so hopefully you can, and hope you're recovering well. Josh Halstead, would you, Darrell, do another video at Bluebell Lakes like you did for Corder?
Possibly. I heard the owner died.
Yes.
So I don't know. Is it still just a day ticket?
I think so. Ash is there now.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Right.
He messaged me. He said he lives 10 minutes away.
I'm open to going to Bluebell. I've only ever fished Kingfisher, really, which is one of the big fish venues there. But I've seen some really nice fish coming out of San Martin in recent years, and I quite like the idea of going to Mallard, because Mallard's the bigger one.
On the right.
I think that we drive past it on the way, and I think that's the one with the most fish in it. And if you're going for a feature, I think that's the one where you got best chance of catching. So,
well, Ash, if you're watching, ask if we can go, and we'll go.
Yeah, Ash, find out if it's open to be filmed down there for CarpFix, and if it is, then we'll go.
I'll ask him anyway. David Justice Scott, when I see you on the bank at Grenville, will you put the kettle on? Of course. See, he's asking about me. He's not bothered if you're there. David messages me when he's going there, seeing what the crack is.
Yeah.
Where am I? Where's my? It keeps going up and down. Sorry. Clay, how do you compensate for undertow? Did we do that one?
Did you say compensate?
Yeah. How do you compensate for undertow? Can you explain your steps?
It's impossible. All you want to try to do in that scenario is fish with a heavy, don't put out dry ingredients that are likely to drift away. You want to make your mix as heavy as possible, so that if it's sort of almost like paste-like, it's going to go down in lumps and go down fast. If you can get it sort of so it's like goes down in lumps, that's sort of breaking down on the way, rather than just soup. If it's soup and super fine particles, it's more likely to get caught up in the toe and disappear. But it's all in the consistency of your mix. But trying to judge it, that's beyond my pay grade. That's. Do
you want a question in French?
If you can translate.
Well, I've translated it.
Come on then.
So the question is from De Moulin, and the question is quel est ton meilleur souvenir à la pêche, which means what is your favourite fishing memory? Don't have to answer.
Did you make that up?
No, look.
No, but did you make up the translation?
No, I googled it. So
favourite.
Yeah.
Got a couple, like two that I like a lot. One is obviously first ever 40 from Yateley. I've been asked that question a few times. Like, I went to Yateley, was quite green around the gills, if you like, and caught my first ever 40 with Terry Hearn in the next swim, like Jeremy on, which was quite cool. And obviously the night at Orient where I caught a 62 common and a 57 common after a month of pretty hard fishing, really. I'd been there a long time and dreamt of having my sort of moment there, and having that moment on the beach on the mud beach was pretty damn epic after a month of hard graft. So they're my two sort of favourite standouts.
Beautiful. Hope that helps. Bon pêche.
Yeah.
Merde. That's what they say to each other.
Mad.
Yeah. Apparently. Steve Higgins. Hi, Darrell and Scott. Darrell, congratulations on the big fully. Darrell, with your combi multi-rig, are you still using the inner part of the dark matter or are you using the slip D braid now?
I'm using the slip D braid, but I literally had a spool of the prototype slip D braid. They gave it to me, I'm going to say it's probably 18 months ago, and I think there's like 10 or 15 metres on the spool, but because I'm only using sort of 8 inches at a time, and you reuse the rig over and over again, I've only just used that first spool up. Bear in mind I'm fishing every week. I think the only reason I actually ordered another spool is because I'm filming a masterclass this week and I need a fresh pack for the film. I need a fresh spool so it all looks good. But yeah, I'm using the new slip D braid. It's exactly the same.
Cool. Lewis Wheeler, good evening, guys. What knots do you both use to connect your shock leader to the braid, and what do you do to prevent frap-ups while spodding?
Do you know?
I don't know what the knot is that I use, but I create a loop, put it through, go round 6 whatever times, and then come
You
back.
create
through.
a loop. You don't what an overhand knot loop or just about like a folded over.
A folded over loop. I go through it, go round.
So you're doing Albright.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I
You're
use.
doing Albright. I do either a back-to-back grinner when I'm feeling ultra lazy, because that's like super easy. Just lay the 2 lines together, make a loop in one, go through it 4 times, make a loop in the other, go through it 4 times, pull them together. That's the quick and easy one. Or sometimes I use the Marhin knot, which is an overhand knot in the heavier shock leader, and then you go through that 10 times up the thick one with the thin one, and then you come 6 turns back down and then back out the overhand knot the same way, so both tag end and entrance are coming out in the same direction of the overhand knot. Again, pull it all tight. If you're like, this is a common question, and when I go to day ticket lakes, I just see people cracking off spoms left, right and centre, just, and it's always to do with when you're taking the line off the distance sticks, they're not keeping an even tension on the braid as you wind it on. It's really key that when you're winding the braid onto the spool, it just goes on under an even tension, and that you don't use some horrendously thick shock leader. There's some real disgusting thick heavy shock leaders out there, and if you use these really thick heavy shock leaders, the knots are big and cumbersome. They catch in the rings, and that's where you get in these like snap offs. So the real key to not getting frap ups, snap ups, is use a fine floating braid for your main line, and use a shock leader that's not too thick. Definitely not mono, like a 30 to 50 pound braid. Make sure you're not too big, and that you've wound the braid off the distance 6 under tension, and you should literally never have frap ups. It's like, it really shouldn't be happening in that.
Cool. James Warren, evening Darrell. I sent you a PM the other day regarding a reel you put on Face Ache.
Face Ache?
Never heard it called Face Ache.
I have, yeah.
That's hilarious.
Talk about me spot
I'd like to say thanks again for the recommendation. I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure. Chris asks you, how long have you been on the meat diet? What do you eat daytime meat only? ?
So basically, since I went to Gigantica for 2 weeks in August, from the middle of August to the end of August, and you definitely put on a few pounds there. You know, they feed you real well, and I drank a lot of beer. And when I came back from that, I just wanted to lose some weight really fast. So I've been eating twice a day, 500 grams of mince, 5% fat, with 4 eggs, or 3 or 4 eggs cracked into each pack of mince. So it's a big meal, that, 500 grams of mince with 3 or 4 eggs in it. That takes some getting down.
It looks a bit dry.
Well, the real key to it is not overcooking it. You put the eggs in before the mince is finished cooking. When it's like half and half, and in the time that the egg turns into being cooked and the meat stops being red, you need to get it off at that point. Because otherwise, it really takes some. It's really hard to get down. But I lost. I think I was 14.9 when I came back. 14.9, 14.10. And I'm 13.5 now, so I've lost a stone in pretty quick time.
Yeah. Oh, like you say, and you're still eating like those
A lot
2
of
meals.
food.
It's still a lot of food. So but yeah. You're
But
not suffering.
I've stopped from this week.
Yeah.
I'm like carbs going back. I'm getting too skinny.
You're always getting winter, isn't it? Have you got a chef next week?
No, I'm cooking for myself.
Oh, yeah. All right, okay.
Cooking for myself. Yeah.
Josh Mercer, I know Darrell has fished Billy's Lake previously. I'm going down on the 10th of November. Any tips for Norton at all? Thank you.
I only fished it once or twice. I don't really know it very well. One thing that sticks in my mind, I'm always someone that's always looking for the hard drops, always looking for the gravel. Now, those lakes at Norton are quite unique in that they're not what I would call gravel pits. They're more like sand pits. So the soft areas aren't silt, they're sand. And from speaking to the bailiffs and speaking to people that fish there quite a lot of the fish get caught off soft bottom in there. I'm always looking for hard bottom, and they tell me that the sandy areas are more productive. But I think with Billy's, just fishing out of range in the middle. If there's loads of people on one bank, I'd go where there isn't loads of anglers. I'd try and get away from the pressure. But generally fishing out into the middle over some spod mix. And I know I saw on their page today that they're allowing particles from, I think it's from the beginning of November every year. They allow hemp, sweet corn, that sort of stuff. So it'd be worth getting over there and trying these baits that haven't been used all year, because I think that could be quite edgy, being one of the first people to be allowed to be used hemp and whatnot.
Yeah. Right, a couple more questions. Darren, when are the kickers out for the combi multi-rig going to be out? And well done on the big un.
Soon. Basically, this week I'm filming the Corda combi multi-rig masterclass, which will be showing how to tie, not only how to tie it, showing the new kickers, talking about the new ready-tied versions, and just the do's and don'ts and why I like that rig. So they should all be out for next year, I imagine. If they're filming a masterclass about it now, that masterclass will come out next year, and you'd like to think that the products will be in place, And once those rigs are available, ready tied, I'm going to use ready tied rigs, because if they're tied exactly how I tie them, I'll order a rig board and I'll order a trade pack of rigs, and I'll just pin them out like I've done them myself. I'll just pin them out.
It won't be any different. Well, apart from your own sanity, you've done it yourself.
The thing is, though, to get good at something, you have to do it frequently. And no one's going to tie more rigs than these people that are tying these rigs. If that's what they're doing for a living, they're tying these rigs.
Pro rig tyres.
Yeah, rig tyres. They're going to be good. So, when they come out ready tied, I'm going to be using them.
Yeah. So Josh Holstead is at Marlad at the moment, and he said it's a day ticket. He's there now. He's at Bluebell. Richard Patton, what's your thoughts, Darrell, on the really expensive hook baits you can buy? The ones that are like 20 quid a pot.
What ones?
No idea.
What corkball ones?
I'm not sure.
I know you can get like 20 quid 20 quid a tub corkball pop-ups. Like corkball pop-ups, if you're fishing match to hatch, if you're fishing somewhere where the fish is tuned into a certain bait, I think having that exact same thing on the rig is good. And I used to be big on that. I used to use corkball pop-ups myself all the time. Home rolled ones. Took me ages to perfect them and stuff. But I actually can't remember the last time I used one. Like a couple of times recently, I've had tubs off people and then put them on my rigs, and then my rigs are leant over, and I'm like looking at them thinking, it's not ideal. 20 quid hook baits. It's a bit spicy though. It's a bit spicy.
I don't know if it's required.
I don't think it's necessary.
No. Right, last question. We'll go back to free eels. We've not spoke about it at all, I don't think, on this live. Matt Smith asks, evening guys, any tips for swim 10 free eels at the end of March?
Sounds good, that. Spread your rods over the whole area. That would be tip number one. Don't ignore the bay to the left. They definitely get in that bay to the left in front of 11 and that area there. Don't ignore the bay off to the right. Get in there at certain times. There's a nice spot just to the left of the alcove in the middle of the island at sort of 31 wraps. If you watch the Full Moon Monsters film that we've got on the app, you'll see exactly where it was. I think it was 31 wraps and 9 feet, just left of the alcove. It's not tight. It's sort of down the bottom of the shelf. Done really well from there. The right-hand corner of the island is it's an interception point. It's not somewhere where they sit, but it's somewhere where they swim past a lot. And I think, again, you have to watch that Full Moon Monsters film, but I was fishing 27 wraps. I think it was 27 and a half wraps. Not bullet tight, just sort of down the shelf on the corner of the island, trying to intercept them and going past there. Crayfish shouldn't be active at all at that time of year. End of March, it should be really, really quiet. I would probably fish with pop-ups at that time of year. I think that's hinge rigs or spinner rigs, something like that. Yellow pop-ups, and probably half a dozen spoms of boilies around each rod. That's probably how I would approach it. Not filling it in. Late March is early, and I think a lot of people can get too excited with the bait at that time of year. So yeah, just a few spoms, yellow pop-ups, white pop-ups, something quite like that. I think probably the way to go.
Yeah, very good. That's it.
Right, well, thank you very much for joining us on our monthly CarpFix Live. Hopefully see you next time.
Yeah, see you in December.
Cheers.